Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of Hold My Microphone. This is going to be a very special episode because this is the first episode of, I hope, of many, where I am going to review someone else's video. This is a video that I have been looking at for a long time. I haven't really watched it, but I've seen it a lot of times when recommended, and it's by the Cosmonaut Variety Hour, and it is called Sam Raimi's Spider-Man Trilogy, Worse Than You Remember. I love these movies. So, if he thinks that they're worse than I remember, then I want to hear him out. No question. If he thinks that they are worse than I remember, please tell me how they are, because I love these movies. In fact, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies I think I said in my last episode, it was the first exposure for a superhero for me. So these hold a very special place in my heart. But if they're worse than I remember, please, tell me. Let's see what you have to say. We're going to go through the whole video. I'm going to give my opinions throughout the video. So, it's going to be like a watch and then pause when I see something that I agree with or disagree with. Let's see what he has to say. This is about 30 minutes, it looks like. And the dislike and like ratio is... There's more likes than dislikes, but the dislikes are also kind of high. Again, we need to remember as we are watching this that this is supposed to be worse than I remember. That's his argument, is that it is worse than I remember. So, let's see what he has to say. So, in this video, I am looking for his arguments for saying that something is bad. If it's worse than I think it is, then that means that it is bad. Okay, let's see what you have to say. I have to press play.
Does whatever a spider can, spins away.
Whenever I post a video at least partially related to Spider-Man, I always get vultures flying down yelling at me about how Homecoming isn't that good. Spider-Man 2 is better. Tom Holland can suck my dick. So the other day I was like, okay, fine. I haven't seen the Sam Raimi movies in a pretty long time. Maybe I need to refresh my opinions a little bit.
Do I think that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are better than Spider-Man Homecoming? Oh, God, that's so hard. Because some of them get a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong. I guess if I had to take my pick, probably the Sam Raimi movies. But that's just because he's more independent. Yeah, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies because he's more independent. I hate this, the sidekick Spider-Man. I hate it. But, that's just because he's more independent. I love the web shooters. I love the Karen thing. I love the Vulture bad guy. I love the fight with the Vulture. I love that. But, I love the Vulture the Vulture's the best part of the movie. But, yeah. I would take the Sam Raimi movies just because it feels more independent Spider-Man, which I like. So, I have to disagree with you there. Well, if I don't know what he has to say. But, in my opinion, that's what I think of it so far.
So I went ahead, I rewatched the movies, and holy shit, these do not hold up. Now, I like to think I have a pretty good track record when it comes to my opinions, alright? I have a decent following of naive 11-year-olds, eccentric European weeaboos, and depressed alcoholic college students that seem to like and listen to my opinions. But I'm aware that I'm kinda pushing it this time. I'm just saying, I think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies aren't as good as you remember. Now, I still love these movies, all three of them, to be exact.
So just one more time. Because I've seen lots of video essays like this where they have a headline and then they don't follow through on the headline. So he is making the argument, one more time, that these movies are worse than I think they are. So he needs to give me arguments why they're bad. Just saying. I've seen so many video essays where they do something like this, and then they never follow through with it. But I want to see what this guy has to say.
Yeah, you heard that right. But it annoys me that people look at the first two as some sort of superhero holy grail, when they're not, like, really that good anymore. So let's look at all three of these movies and see why they really don't hold up and are kind of a little bit, just a little bit, of a mess. And yeah, I know everybody says Spider-Man 3 is the worst one, but if you ask me, all three of these movies are basically the same, and I'll elaborate more on that later. But for now, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with Spider-Man 1.
Spider-Man 3 is not that bad. It's not. It's not that bad. Some of the scenes are weird. The dancing is weird. Peter's kind of an asshole. But the Eddie Brock plot works. The Sandman plot works. Besides the amnesia part, the Harry Osborn plot works. You know? Mary Jane not realizing how big of a responsibility it is to be Spider-Man's girlfriend, that works. Spider-Man's fame kind of getting to him, that works. There are a lot of things that don't work. But some things that work. I don't think that it's like the worst superhero movie ever or anything like that. But Spider-Man 1.
So the first thing we're greeted with is a corny narration by Peter Parker, played by good old American sweetheart Tobey Maguire. And this is the one thing that I hate the most about the Spider-Man trilogy. I hate Tobey Maguire. Ever since I was a kid, I never really saw him as my definitive Peter Parker. He's kind of meek and wimpy, and that's supposed to be Peter's personality at first, but he never really gets over it. Even when he's Spider-Man, I still want to kick his ass because he's a huge dork.
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
And sometimes Tobey's performance is just really bad. There are some actors doing a really good job in these movies, so you really notice when somebody isn't doing that great of a job.
Huh. I do agree with the Peter Parker thing that, you know, he's wimpy and nerdy in the beginning, but he kind of gets over it. But I think he kind of gets over it. Maybe. Like, I think he kind of does. I mean, like, I guess that's the point, but it's for him to be nerdy in the beginning. But he gets over it. At least in the third movie, he's fucking over it completely. But I guess he's only talking about the first movie. I don't know, I don't think he's wimpy when he's Spider-Man. At all. I don't think he's wimpy at all when he's Spider-Man. Like, ever since he gets bitten by the spider, I think he turns less wimpy. 'Cause, like... yeah, he fucking knocks out Flash Thompson. And, like... he doesn't knock him out, but he hurts him to hell. And, like, I don't know. I don't ever really think he's a wimpy nerd in the beginning compared to the end. I don't think at all, like, he's a dork when he's Spider-Man. Not at all. He's much more serious and confident when he's Spider-Man. I completely disagree with that.
Who am I? You sure you want to know?
Blech. Also, at the mere 6-minute mark, we are shown the greatest character in the entire trilogy, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn.
I agree. His performance is the best one. I can't agree with that.
I'll get more into him later, though. For now, let's look at how Harry introduces his dad.
Peter, may I introduce my father, Norman Osborn?
Why would you introduce your dad by his full name? That's kind of weird, but what?
Well, his father is a very important businessman, and I'm sure he lives in a stature of, personality like this where you have to... His father's a very important billionaire. Of course, if my dad was a billionaire, and if I was introducing my friend to my father, I would definitely address him by his full name. I think in this scene, like, Harry is trying to impress his dad while introducing Peter to his dad. And I think if he just said, I'm going to introduce my father, Norman, I'm sure his father would look at him like, I am Norman Osborn. You know, like, how did I raise you with, you know, the way that you talk to people? You know what I mean? Like, I think Peter has two personalities, when he's with his father and when he isn't. So, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's weird. I think that Harry was raised to have that kind of formality, to be that formal around his father because of his business and how important he is. I don't think that's weird.
Whatever. Also, look at these high school students. Now, I know a lot of movies have people who aren't really playing their age, but this is kind of ridiculous. You see this guy? That's supposed to be their teacher. He's younger than they are. I gotta say, though, I love how every line this man says is whispered and sounds very aggressive and threatening.
The next person who talks will fail this course. I kid you not.
Do you know that this is the largest electron microscope on the eastern seaboard?
You were talking throughout that woman's entire presentation.
So anyway, Peter...
Okay, first of all, two things. The high school students are okay. I know that they're not in high school, but they look pretty convincing. They look okay. They look pretty convincing. They do. Like, I remember when I saw Flash in that movie, I thought that he was the same age as, you know, all the rest of them. But I think he was like 30 when that movie came out or something. So, I don't know. I disagree with that. And another thing is, of course the teacher is quiet and whispering. He's telling the children to be quiet. So, yeah. Wow, that's a really creepy freeze frame in my podcast right now. No, I mean, of course he's telling them to be... Of course he's whispering. Why would you talk normally if you're telling kids to be quiet when you're talking? Like, if I told the kid to be quiet and then I had to go up and talk to him, I would whisper. A teacher never says, stop talking! No, during a presentation. He whispers to him. It's not a criticism.
Peter gets bitten by some brown recluse and then he dies peacefully in his sleep. So in the next scene, we get the beginnings of Norman Osborn's supervillain origin story. And I gotta say,
there is no problem with the superhero origin story. It makes perfect sense. I'm not going to explain all of it, but it makes perfect sense. He's being hired by the military to make performance enhancers, and they fuck it up and they have to go back to the drawing board, and the military says, okay, well, if you can't get this shit done in, you know, fucking 2 weeks or something, I think it is, then we're pulling all your funding. Then yeah, that makes perfect sense. So he does the test, and he turns into the Green Goblin because of the side effects. That's perfect. Maybe he's not going to make a criticism, I don't know.
I do like the pacing in this movie for the most part. Things go along in a fairly well-balanced way. You see the
I guess he isn't even going to talk about it.
beginning of Peter's origin, and then right after you see the beginning of the villain's origin. It just keeps going back and forth like this.
That's a positive. You're supposed to tell me why it's worse. And so far, I've kind of disagreed with everything you've said.
However, his motivations aren't really that clear.
Yes, they are. How are they not clear? Tell me how.
Before he turns into a crazy monster person, he seems mad that they're taking the project back to formula.
Deadlines. I think they, like, dedicated the whole business to this project. Of course he's freaking out. What the fuck, man?
Back to formula.
I'm a dumb internet movie boy, so I don't know what that means, but it seems like he needs to get his little science project done really quickly, or the army men won't be very...
What do you mean you don't know back to... Don't make a criticism of it if you don't know what it means.
Very happy with him. Next, we see the first scene of what I'm going to call corny Sam Raimi shit. Why are there skulls? It looks like I added those in post, but that's for real. This is fucking hilarious, and it only gets better from here. The next scene is
Okay, but that's not a thing that's bad about it. You're just saying that it's funny. You haven't, like, said anything that's bad yet. Like, you haven't said, this makes the movie bad. You've just, like, maybe. You said, like, the Tobey Maguire performance was bad. That was a criticism that you made. And I kind of agreed with you a little bit, but I disagreed with you that you said that he never grew out of the dorkiness. Even when he was Spider-Man. I disagreed with you on that. But everything else, you've just, like, said that something is funny. That doesn't make it bad. Is he saying that it makes it bad? Because it's, like, comical? When it's, like, supposed to be serious? I don't know. He hasn't said that it's making it worse. I don't understand that. The skulls are weird, but I don't think that makes it a bad part of the movie. He didn't even say that. He said it was funny. So, I don't know.
even funnier. Norman goes ahead and decides he's going to be the human test subject, and this fucking doormat just goes along with it. Oh, I guess I'll just clean up the broken glass, asshole. Also, I think this little part is hilarious. Well, either way, the experiment goes horribly wrong, and he dies. What?
Back to formula.
This is a comedy movie. I don't...
Okay, saying that you think it's funny, you're not telling me that it makes it worse. You're not giving me an argument on why it's worse. And another thing is, of course, Dr. Strama's gonna go along with it. Norman Osborn is the head of the company. He really doesn't have a fucking choice.
I don't care what anybody tells me. Now, you guys know the rest. I won't nitpick the rest of this first act, because that would be way too easy. Like, I could mention how...
You're doing it. It reminds me of, oh, who was that guy? Who was that guy? He would be like, I could make fun of him more. Like, I could talk about blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what he's doing. Like, he's saying, I'm not going to nitpick this movie anymore. Like that one scene where, like, he's nitpicking it more. He's doing it. That's what he's doing.
How Peter's just gonna walk to school, but then the bus just appears and he's like, oh no, wait, I'm supposed to run after the bus.
He was walking to the bus stop to talk to Mary Jane. Mary Jane was waiting at the bus stop and then a car picked her up. So the bus drove away because nobody was at the bus stop. He wasn't walking to school, he was walking to the bus stop. Wrong.
Like, what the fuck? You weren't even going to the bus stop. It's your own fault if you miss it now.
He was going to the bus
stop.
stop.
I'm most definitely not going to mention this unfortunately aged joke.
You're doing it again. You're nitpicking it more even though you said you weren't going to.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
What if he did make it for him? Would that be so bad? Wow, Spider-Man, you're pretty homophobic. But
does that joke make the movie worse? I mean, it's a pretty fucking funny joke, honestly, but... I don't... None of these are criticisms of the film. The first argument, but we're past that now, with Tobey Maguire. All the rest of this has not been a criticism. You're just saying, like, things are funnier. You're, like, making a joke about something. You're just making jokes about things. That's not a criticism.
one thing that does bug me is the pivotal scene where Uncle Ben gives his iconic speech. Because he's actually chastising Peter Parker for fighting Flash Thompson in a previous scene. Except Peter was fighting in self-defense. And Uncle Ben's like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. Just because you can beat him up doesn't mean you should. So what does Peter do with this advice? He spends the rest of his life beating people up. The context just don't make no sense. However, on an...
Okay. Uncle Ben was trying to say that you can't, like, just because you can beat him up doesn't mean that you should. Like, Flash was not putting other people in danger. But Spider-Man always, like, tries to save other people with his powers. When he was fighting Flash, he was fighting in self-defense, but he wasn't, like, helping somebody else. He was just helping himself. And he was kind of doing, like, he felt good about it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I'm sure he feels good about it when he's Spider-Man too, but at least he's helping people. You know? That's what I think Uncle Ben was trying to say.
An unrelated note, I think it's time to bring up something that I love about these movies, and that's the extras. I'm serious, look in the background of any shot and just find a random person. You'll get a whole new level of entertainment out of these movies. In this movie, you'll see background characters that don't give a shit, people who have no idea where they are, even main characters have a chance of devolving into items.
Okay, first of all, this is not a weird extra move. Norman was talking to Peter, and Harry was, like, feeling... You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Like, Harry was talking to Norman, and all of a sudden, Norman's like, Peter! You know, they're talking, and Harry feels like, oh, I guess I should, you know, stop. Like, he feels kind of, like, left out now, and he should just walk away out of this conversation that he clearly isn't a part of anymore. That's not a weird extra move. And he says that it's funny, all the extras. That's not a criticism of why it makes the movie bad.
Idle Sims when they're not the focus of the scene. It is really bizarre. So for those of you who aren't aware by now, this movie has a certain flow to it. We see Peter do stuff, and then we see Norman do stuff. And then Peter and Norman meet up again, and the whole thing goes on like that until the movie's over. And this works mostly because, like I said, Norman Osborn is fucking hilarious. Maybe it's just me, but every scene with him makes me laugh. He could be doing something completely normal, and it's still hilarious to me. It's like Willem Dafoe is an alien pretending to be a human.
Peter, the Science Award. That's terrific.
Yeah.
I am now going to share some of my favorite moments.
I don't understand what's wrong with any of that acting. In fact, like, the part where he's, like, smiling and laughing at the mirror, it's pretty creepy. Like, he's fucking insane. You know what I mean? From the side effects. So, of course he's gonna do that. And it's not... I don't think it's funny. And I'm gonna say it again. You just keep on saying things are funny. That's all you've been saying. And you haven't been telling me a criticism of the film. Like, I don't know whether to take this video seriously anymore. Because you're just telling me that things are funny.
From Norman Osborn in this movie. I like the reaction he has when Harry offers Peter to work for him. He looks so happy. Look
Yeah, because he likes Peter.
at his face.
Because he's into shit that he's into. And Harry isn't. Why is that funny?
We need to describe this part. It kind of speaks for itself. I love how his whole plan to recruit Spider-Man is to drug him, kidnap him, tie him up, and have a dad talk with him on a rooftop about how New Yorkers are dicks and they're not worth saving.
Right.
I like how he dresses up as an old lady, complete with...
I mean, what else was he going to do to try and convince him? He's trying to have a talk with him. Not only that, but he's, like, trying to, you know, subdue him so he has to talk to him instead of fight him. I don't think that's weird at all. I don't get that.
with a stock sound effect. Just so he can get the jump on Spider-Man. And then the scene ends with this great line.
No one says no to me!
He said it was a great line. Like, are you trying to say that it's funny? Stop saying that things are funny. That's not a criticism. And it's a good line, too. You gotta remember, Norman Osborn is insane. He says crazy shit. It's part of his character.
Sometimes he just shows up for no reason, like this jump scare. However, a character...
I'll think that's when, like, Peter is having flashbacks of the Green Goblin. It's like a bad dream that he's having. I don't understand why that's weird.
These movies that I do not like is Aunt May.
What?
Aunt May has the worst pep talks in this movie.
I can't
What?
help thinking about the last thing I said to him. He tried to tell me something important, and I threw it in his face.
You loved him.
Wow, she's so wise. Aunt May.
That's the perfect thing to say. Peter is trying to say, like, I threw it in his face, and I was such a bad person to him. And she just tells him, you loved him. That's a great thing to say. That would make anybody feel instantly better. Did he say that that was funny, or did he say that it was bad? He said that she had the worst pep talks, but I disagree with that.
So wise. Aunt May is supposed to be Peter's moral compass, and in these movies, she's kind of rude. But I'll get into that in the next movie, where she is just the biggest asshole.
What?
Ow!
So anywho, the second half of this movie hits, and you realize that we are now watching a completely different movie. And I couldn't be happier, honestly. This movie is so wild, and I think that's why everybody loves these movies. In the second half of the movie, we're also introduced.
So if you say it's wild, give me an argument on why that's bad. Ugh, it's so frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Introduced to the actual best character, J. Jonah Jameson.
You said that William Dafoe was the best one first. Now I guess this one is, which I actually agree with. J. Jonah Jameson is the best character in these. I lied. I can agree with you on that. But that's not a criticism of this film series. It's a compliment.
Even when I read the comics, I hear his voice in my head. Not only is his performance good, but it's like his scenes have a completely different writing staff. His lines are legitimately funny in this.
Mr. Jameson, Spider-Man.
Hoffman?
Yeah?
Hoffman!
Yeah?
To the point where I'm pretty sure he's making some of this stuff up.
Spider-Man wasn't attacking the city. He was trying to save it. That's slander.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Also, do you guys remember that Elizabeth Banks is in these movies? Yeah, no. Nobody remembers that. So once the
All of that was compliments on J. Jonah Jameson's performance, not saying that the film series is worse than I remember. And yeah, I do remember Elizabeth Banks was in these movies. When you mention it. Okay, let's keep on going.
festival scene happens, we get a really good idea of how much this movie has completely lost it. Where before the special effects were mostly hidden or just briefly shown, this movie is now a CGI nightmare.
No,
and if you think
it's
I'm being
not.
mean to a movie that came out in 2002, let's see what a real critic has to say.
You know, my thumb is down on this movie, but it's sort of a split decision. When you see Spider-Man flying through the skies and leaping between buildings, he looks like an artificial cartoon character. He moves too fast, without the weight and presence of flesh and blood.
See, they even thought it looked like shit back then, so leave me alone. This part here always
Okay, that's a criticism. I kind of disagree with it, though. But at least you're finally saying something that's worse than I remember about the films. It only took you 9 minutes in your 26-minute video. I don't know. I think they look fine. I don't really have a problem with them. They look not CGI covered. Does that make sense? They look kind of practical. I don't really have a problem with them. They're made in the early 2000s. But I don't know, man. I don't have a problem with them, but I'm just glad that you're finally giving me an argument on why you think they're worse than I remember. They're obviously not the greatest special effects, but I think that they hold up. Because in the beginning you said that these movies don't hold up. I think the special effects hold up. I disagree with you on that. So far, the only things that I've agreed with you in this video are things that you like about the films. Which is the complete opposite of what your video was trying to say.
kind of bothered me too. See, Goblin has these fucking bombs that turn people into skeletons. Yeah, for real. Anyway, he throws
What's wrong with that? That was fucking badass. Are you trying to say that it's funny?
At this balcony, and Harry and MJ are also on this balcony, like they're right next to each other.
Yep.
But the bomb only kills these people. Not only kills them, it fucking vaporizes them. But why didn't MJ get hit? She saw it happen. She literally watched this happen right in front of her. But she's fine. I mean, maybe you gotta be like really, really close to it. I don't know. Now I'm gonna show you guys.
I mean, I guess that's true. I didn't really notice it until you said it, but... I mean, I guess. Wasn't she under the thing when that happened anyway? Yeah, she was on the platform. See?
Anyway, he throws it at this balcony, and Harry and MJ are also on this balcony.
Yeah,
like they're right next to each other.
No. She's down there. She's down there. She wasn't on the same level as them, even. Never mind, your argument's invalid.
I mean, maybe you gotta be like really, really close to it. I don't know. Now I'm gonna show you guys a brief clip, and it showcases exactly why I love this movie, and why I think this movie is a huge joke.
You said that you loved this movie. Pick a side, man. Come on. Alright.
Everything that this movie symbolizes in my mind is in this clip.
Hello, my dear.
It's Spider-Man!
This clip has everything. Goofy-ass Willem Dafoe acting, screaming women, which Sam Raimi loves, by the way, but I'll get into that later, and hilarious extras.
It's Spider-Man!
I did not edit that clip to be any faster. That's just the pace of these movies. This festival scene is just really a masterpiece. I can cut out 5 seconds at any...
You just called it a masterpiece. I mean, I agree. It's my favorite scene in all 3 of the movies, but that's just because it holds such a special place in my heart. But you're not saying it's bad. You're saying it's good. I agree, but you're saying it's all great.
Any point of this whole scene, and you have unintentional comedy gold.
Hold it right there! I surrender!
Oh boy.
So the scene ends with a nice 1-2 punch. First, we get one of the funniest lines in the movie.
Help me to yes! Spider-Man!
Yeah, that line's pretty weird.
And then Peter Parker kidnaps Mary Jane, and the crowd cheers
But you said that it was a good line. You said it was funny. Just saying.
him on for doing this. You don't think she needs to, like, go to the hospital? Because she was trapped under fucking rubble. And people have also pointed this out before, but that's obviously a mannequin in a Spider-Man costume, and her hair is blowing in the wrong way. Anyway, let's look at more goofy scenes out of context.
I thought that he was trying to just get her to safety from everything. That's how I got it implied anyway.
I'm right here.
You can't show clips out of context when you're trying to make an argument on why it's bad.
This movie is so fucking funny. It's
That's a good... Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I don't know. Is everything a joke in this video?
pretty clear that this movie is the goofiest thing to be put on film in the year 2002. I mean, the climax has the villain literally holding the love interest in one hand and a metal box of children in the other.
Okay, I know what he's gonna say already, so I'm just gonna say this. This is a great scene because he's forced to make a choice, and then you get to see that Spider-Man has the will and ability to break free from this from the goblin asshole that's trying to make him do something, and he says, fuck you, I'm gonna do both of them. So he breaks free from the goblin's mental grasp, and he saves both of them, the love interest and the people he's supposed to protect in the first place. It's a great scene, and I can guarantee you that he's going to say that it's funny.
And Spider-Man has to pick which one he's going to save. If something this stereotypical happened in a superhero movie today, there would be public outcry about how silly it is.
No, it's a great scene. If there was a scene like this in a new Spider-Man movie, I'd like it.
But to top it off, you get the funniest line in the whole movie. And I mean it. Out of everything I've shown you guys, this line is my favorite. I have memorized this speech. It is truly iconic to me as one of the greatest and cheesiest superhero movie monologues.
Spider-Man! Spider-Man! This is why only fools are heroes. Because you never know when some lunatic will come along with the sadistic choice. Let die the woman you love, or suffer the little children.
Truly a masterpiece. As a regular superhero movie, I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. But as a comedy, 10s across the board, baby.
So, okay, first of all, I was right about him saying it was funny. But he just rated it a 10 out of 10 of funny. Is he saying that if it's funny, it's worse than I remember it to be? I don't think it's funny. Like, the movie is funny at all. Like, I don't think that when people watch these movies, they're laughing. Like, when I clicked on this, I was hoping that he would give me, like, plot hole arguments. Or character arguments. Or something. He only did that once. And that was at the 30-second mark. But we're 12 minutes in, and he's just saying that everything is funny. We're only halfway done. And it's almost 40 minutes in.
Comedic gold.
Don't tell Harry.
How is that funny? I don't get... He doesn't even explain how it's funny.
So now we've arrived at the Citizen Kane of Spider-Man movies. Or so people say. Spider-Man 2.1.
Honestly, I think that the first one is my favorite one, but the second one, I think it goes 1, 2, 3 with the Sam Raimi movies. Like, I think an argument can be made for Spider-Man 2 with like something bad about it is he loses his powers and it's because he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, and so his powers like kind of know that he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. And, like, he has a choice and everything. Wait, do they explain that? Oh, right, they explain it at the doctor's office. Oh. The doctor kind of explains it to him, and then Peter realizes why he was losing his powers in the first place. I guess if there's anything wrong with Spider-Man 2, it's when he gets his powers back. Like, he wants to be Spider-Man and he doesn't get him back, but then when Mary Jane's in trouble, he gets him back. Like, if he has the choice, then his powers should come back when he wants to be Spider-Man again. That's the one problem that I have with this film. Other than that, everything's great. No problem. In my opinion. But again, maybe this one will change. Maybe he'll stop saying that everything is funny. I doubt it, but we'll see.
That's the one I have. I'm sorry. Now, while the point of this video is to bring up the crummy aspects of this movie and kind of laugh at it,
yes,
I gotta admit that it's 100% undeniable that this is the best movie out of the trilogy.
Okay, but just please give me some criticisms. Give me criticisms. Tell me why this movie is bad, please.
It's way funnier than the first one. It has some good emotional moments, and it's pretty exciting to watch. But it still has dumb shit. So, let's...
Okay. So you commented it. That's great. Get all the comments out of the way right now. Tell me why it's bad.
Start off with another Peter Parker narration.
Who am I? I'm Spider-Man, given a job to do.
Bleh. Now, I would run...
I mean, they're kind of cringy. But I don't think that makes them worse than I remember them. Maybe a little bit. So far, his criticisms I've disagreed with too. Like, I don't think that his criticisms make them any worse than I remember them. They just don't.
Run through this movie scene by scene like I did for the last movie, but this movie's kind of hard to do that for, and I'd also be here for a really long time. I'm trying to go to bed. This movie follows a little bit of a formula, but not the same one as the last movie. In this movie, everything revolves around Peter Parker being shit on. And I know shitting on him is kind of half of the whole thing about being Spider-Man, but that's exactly my point. It should be half of the story. Rewatching
It is half of the story. Maybe like 3/4 of it. I don't know. But it's not the whole movie of him being shit on. Plus, it's supposed to be the movie where being Spider-Man really sets in the problems. You know? Not everything bad happens in that movie. Some good things happen. Mary Jane runs up to him in her wedding dress, and he has his birthday party, and I guess that's it. The beginning and the end. Yeah. Plus, he gets to have chocolate cake with that girl. That's nice to him, and he gets to go see Mary Jane's play, and that's fun. But I understand that a lot of bad things happen to him, but that's kind of the point of the movie. The second one is always supposed to be like the darkest time for the character, and being Spider-Man in the darkest parts of the character is him getting shit on. Like, that's the point. It's supposed to show the darkest part of being Spider-Man. So, no, I dig it. I understand. I disagree with the criticism of him being shit on as a bad part of the movie.
This movie is really frustrating because everybody is an asshole. Mary Jane is an asshole.
I don't know. I think Mary Jane just got tired of Peter holding out on her too much.
Aunt May is rude as fuck.
What? Okay, I hope he talks about that, because we're going to be here for a while if he does.
Harry is the biggest piece of shit ever.
Well, yeah, his father's dead and he thinks that Spider-Man killed him, and Peter's his only connection to Spider-Man. So, of course, he's pissed off. Plus, his whole company invested in Otto Octavius, and that whole experiment got fucked up, and so, of course, he's pissed off.
This movie is just unrelentingly mean. The first thing Harry says to Peter in this movie is, "Hey, your friend Spider-Man killed my dad, and I fucking hate you." And then they start talking about other stuff, and then he's like, "No, but seriously, I really hate Spider-Man, and I hate you, and this is why Uncle Ben died."
Well, yeah, because that's like the chip on his shoulder. And again, Peter is the only connection to Spider-Man, so of course he's going to talk about it with him. He's the only person he can talk about it with.
Every chance Harry gets, he talks about how Spider-Man killed his dad. Even when Spider-Man saves his life in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't even skip a beat. He's just like,
"This doesn't change anything."
He hates him. I mean, yeah, he hates him. Because he killed his fucking father. Well, he didn't, but he thinks that he did. You know? Somebody killed my dad and saved me, I would probably be the same way.
God damn, dude, you are really petty. It also doesn't help that James Franco's acting is kind of shitty in this movie.
I'm ruined. I have nothing left except Spider-Man.
And then we have Aunt May.
I don't think that that's really shitty acting. It's not the best, but it's okay. I'm just glad that he's giving criticisms this time. Okay, Aunt May. Here we go. I think that Aunt May is awesome in this movie. But go ahead. Tell me why it's bad. Maybe I'll agree with you.
May, who nags the shit out of Peter Parker in every scene that he's in. She abuses random people. Ow! And in the most egregious...
She was trying to kick Peter. And she accidentally kicked the bank teller. She didn't mean to.
Instance of mischaracterization, she makes Peter feel more guilty for Uncle Ben's death. At a crucial point in the movie, Peter is like, "Hey, Aunt May, it's been eating me up inside. I basically caused Uncle Ben's death. I didn't know how to tell you, and I'm so sorry. All I want is forgiveness." And she's basically like, "Wow, you're a piece of shit. Bye." And then she just...
No, she doesn't do that. She's stunned. She's horrified, and she's so sad. I remember in the beginning of the movie, she's like, "If I ever faced the one responsible for what happened, I don't know what I'd do." And then she faces the one responsible, and it's her own fucking nephew. She's horrified. So she goes upstairs to cry.
She just leaves. She leaves him there.
Well, yeah, she's... I don't think you understand these movies. I don't think you understand him. You at least don't understand Aunt May, I can tell you that much.
When Peter comes back and he tries to talk about it again, you know, to get some closure, she's basically like, well, you fucked up, but whatever.
No, she doesn't. She says, you know, I understand. And she said, like, you know, I love you, Peter. And she does, doesn't she? And I really feel like she says that. She says, like, I love you, Peter. She says, you know, I think she says, like, mistakes happen or something like that. I don't really remember what she says, but I know she doesn't say, oh, you fucked up, whatever. I know she doesn't say that.
This is not Aunt May, and it...
Yes, it is. You're seeing Aunt May at her most vulnerable. That's what you're seeing. That is Aunt May. You're just not used to seeing her in this kind of position.
It makes me really mad. But even though Aunt May has the worst scene, and she's one of the worst characters in the...
See, now, the difference is, I'm going to say this right now, in case if some of you podcast listeners from the last episode are listening. When I say that Spider-Man needs to tell more jokes when he's fighting, you can argue, oh, he's at his most vulnerable when he's fighting people. Okay, but it happens all the fucking time. It's not one time. You can only be at your most vulnerable with, like, one big time to make it work. Like when Spider-Man was lifting the rubble in Spider-Man Homecoming, that was his most vulnerable. When he's fighting Mysterio, that is... sorry, that is not his most vulnerable. So, get that argument out right now.
In the movie, she still isn't the number one worst character. No, that award goes to Mary Jane Watson, the most petty and manipulative person in the entire series. She spends the whole movie fucking with Peter's emotions. At the end of the first movie, he's like, hey, listen, I'm sorry, we can't be together. You know, I gotta do my own thing. It's sad, but hey, he's being straight with her. And in their first scene in this movie, she tries to make the moves on him, and he's like, hey, whoa, hold up. Yeah, no, I'm still trying to be friends here. I don't want to date you. And she's like, oh yeah? Well, fucking kiss me, you pussy. Look how cute I am. I baked you a fucking cake. And he's like, okay. Oh, boy, yeah.
Oh, boy, yeah.
And she's like, admit you love me. Admit you love me, Peter. And he's like, no, I don't want to. So she takes it easy. You know, she backs off a little bit. She doesn't freak out or anything, except she does this shit. And then a second later, she turns around and she's like, oh, well, you know what? I have a boyfriend anyway, so fuck you. And she seriously says it just to fuck with him. But then you learn that she's only...
No. She says that she's seeing somebody. But they're not... I don't think they were dating at the time. He says, like, I'm seeing somebody. She's just trying to make the moves on him because she still loves him. She doesn't love, you know, John Jameson or anything. But she was never saying, like, I'm just saying this to fuck with you. You know what I mean? Like, she was trying to make the moves on him. And then he still didn't do it. So she said, you know, hey, I'm seeing somebody. Like, that was your last chance. You know what I mean? I think that's what she was trying to do.
Only fucking this other guy because she's mad at Peter Parker.
I don't think that she was doing that because she was mad at Peter. I think that she was with John Jameson and chose to marry him because Peter Parker wasn't accepting her signals, and then he just kept on fucking up. I do the same thing.
She agrees to marry him right after she yells at Peter Parker. It's just because she's mad at him.
Oh, not because she's mad at him. I mean, that's partly why. But not just because she's mad at him. Also because she kept on trying with Peter, and Peter didn't fucking do it. I do the same thing.
I bleed.
So then in the weirdest scene of the movie, she has this fucking experiment with her fiance where she makes him kiss her like Spider-Man kissed her in the first movie. What if your girlfriend went up to you and was like, hey, can you kiss me like this one guy used to kiss me? This one guy that I just kissed in an alleyway one time? I just want to, you know, see what it feels like. What the fuck? No! But that's not the only...
I mean, I guess that's how she did it. I thought that she was doing it Well, I guess I thought that she was doing it that way. I don't really see anything wrong with that, though. I think it's just a scene to show that Mary Jane still loves Peter, you know, even after all of this. Because at the end of the second movie, she says, you know, when Peter reveals that he's Spider-Man, she says, "I think I always knew." So I think that this scene is just supposed to show that Mary Jane still loves Peter, even at this point. At least that's how I got from it.
Frustrating plot device. Dr. Octopus is also a big dumbass. Firstly, he has this extremely dangerous demonstration in his fucking apartment with no protective gear given to anybody in the room other than goggles for himself. And then when he turns evil, his entire supervillain plot is, well, I gotta finish my science experiment. Might as well. I get that you're supposed to be crazy now because of the AI of the metal arms, you know, fucking with his mind. But why the fuck do they want to finish the fusion reactor?
Because that's their sole purpose of being made. Literally, their only purpose of creation was to build the fusion reactor. Now, I do agree that you probably shouldn't have done that in your apartment. I do agree with that. And I do agree that you probably should have given more gear to the people in the room. That is criticism like 2 that I agree with you out of the 50 that you've presented so far, if you can call them criticisms. Because most of them you thought were funny. This is probably a little bit better of a constructed movie one, though, because the first one is just filled with comedy, and that irritated me.
What do they care about sustainable energy for?
Because that's the purpose of being made.
I don't get it. He's one of the best characters in the Spider-Man universe with really complex goals and motivations. But here he's just a fucking goofball.
Butterfingers.
I will say, though, that one of the best scenes in the movie is definitely the fucking horror scene that plays at the end of the first act.
It's not a criticism, but I do agree with you.
This is so reminiscent of Evil Dead that it makes me kind of giddy. Like, look at this. Tell me this is not from Evil Dead. For real. And to top it off, this scene is full of the other staple of this trilogy, screaming women. I mentioned it briefly before, but Sam Raimi loves screaming women. Even when the movie isn't being campy and it's not being serious, it's just being really awkward. Tobey Maguire can't have a normal scene with somebody.
We sure showed him.
What do you mean, we?
Oh.
That's a normal scene. Aunt May's just being sassy. That's a normal scene. What the fuck?
So anyway, Peter Parker beats up Dr. Octopus, he tells Mary Jane he's Spider-Man, and then she leaves her fiancé on their wedding day and decides to be with Peter Parker. Which is fucked up, but whatever. Oh, she also...
That's not fucked up, it's fucking romantic. She's accepting her love for Peter and accepting the responsibility of being with Spider-Man. It's good character development for her. Because she finally stops, you know, trying to trick herself. It's good character development. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's really romantic and very climactic, too.
Also says that she doesn't mind that he's Spider-Man and she'll do whatever it takes to be with him, and that she'll be there for him no matter what. Except in the next movie where she leaves him because he's Spider-Man.
Because those are the consequences of being with Spider-Man. Things develop. Come on.
Anyway, this movie's dumb as hell. 7 out of 10. I love it.
What the fuck? This is more frustrating to watch than The Last Jedi. You make a video trying to construct what is bad about a movie. And then for the first time out of, like, not... So for the second movie, you finally present some criticisms that I disagree with, but at least you're not trying to say that they're funny. And then you finally come up with some criticisms. And then to end it, you say that you love it. I guess you just kind of contradicted everything you just said. That's great. Okay, before this starts, place your bets. I think he's going to say that it's funny when Peter dances, and I think he's going to say that the worst part of it is Peter being an asshole. Just putting it out there. I do agree that Peter is an asshole, but I think he has motivation for being an asshole. Because he's letting the fame get to his head. He thinks he's at the top of the world. He's got the girl. He's got the fame. He's got the powers. You know what I mean? And he started out as a nerd without the girl, and now he has the girl, so he lets it kind of get to his head. And with the symbiote, it like attaches itself to him, and he, you know, becomes an even bigger asshole because of the symbiote. It happens in the comics. It works. There are some things wrong with it, obviously, like even with that big of an ego, you should not have Gwen Stacy kiss you in front of Mary Jane. That's a bad part. He should criticize that. He should criticize that. He shouldn't. If he's gonna mention it, don't make it like a one-liner, please. Actually criticize that, because that is a criticism that I will agree on you with.
Okay, so everybody knows that this movie is bad. And I'm not about to talk shit about Spider-Man 2 and go ahead and say this one's good. And I almost wasn't even going to talk about it because everybody already knows the funny things in it. But I can't help it. This movie's hilarious. However, while the...
Does that make it bad? Just criticize it, man. Please stop saying it's funny. That doesn't make it bad.
The movie is bad.
And if it does make it bad, explain why being it funny makes it bad. Explain!
Bad. It's actually pretty consistent in its tone. This still feels like a Spider-Man sequel, even if it is a really stupid one.
How's the pie?
So good.
So this movie goes ahead and starts off with another...
It's me, Peter Parker.
God damn it. You think after 2 movies he'd probably get good at this. But no, he doesn't. Now if you ask me, the best part...
Is he saying that it's cringy? I think he's trying to say that it's cringy. I mean, yeah, it's pretty cringy. I guess that makes it a little dumb. Maybe a little bit. That is 2 things I agree with you. The Peter being wimpy. No, I disagree with you on that. Why do I think I agree with you on that? Why am I thinking that? I disagreed with you on that at the very beginning. Oh no, I didn't agree with you on it. I said that was your first criticism in like the first 15 minutes, and it was at the 30-second mark. I guess this is the one thing I really can agree with you with. The intros are pretty cringy. But that doesn't make the movies bad. That's not a plot hole. It's just something a little dumb in it. Like, it doesn't go against his character. Like, okay, like, let me give you an example between something that's a little dumb and something that's a little dumb but, like, ruins your fucking character. Okay? Luke from The Last Jedi drinking the green milk and shit. Okay? Here's why it goes against his character to do shit like that. Because Luke saved the fucking galaxy, and then you look, and then he looks like a fucking hobo drinking milk. That is not what Luke should be doing. That's cringy and going against your character. Spider-Man is just cringy in this because he just kind of sucks at it. That's it. Moving on.
Part about this movie is the fact that the wackiness starts at the very beginning. It's not a gradual build-up like it is in the last 2 movies. This movie starts off as a shit show. At the 10-minute mark, we already see 2 antagonists. Harry starts juicing with the goblin serum, and a fucking meteorite lands in Central Park with the symbiote. This movie's trying to juggle all of this shit at once, and it really doesn't work.
Well, I disagree. I think that Harry building up with the 3 movies was good. And I think that the Venom introducing is good too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Also, the symbiote coming from outer space is fucking stupid. I know that's how it is in the comics, but there's a lot more context in the original story. With everything that we know about this universe...
Well, you gotta fit all of it in a 2-hour movie, man. You can't bring the fucking Secret Wars in a 2-hour movie when you're trying to fit all this crap in. You can't bring the Secret Wars in to get the black suit. Meteor is acceptable. That's how they did it in the fucking animated series in the 90s. It's fine.
So far, telling me that aliens exist is kind of a stretch. So after all that, Harry ambushes Peter and tries to fucking murder him in the street. We are not even 1/6 through the movie at this point. Now, all things considered, I actually like this fight. It's pretty exciting. We know.
But you just criticized it, and now you say that you like it. Are you saying you don't like the way it's introduced, but then you like the fight? I don't really have a problem with it being introduced. I think it's appropriate. It's after the whole Broadway fight thing and everything. I thought that Harry was going to appear right after the Broadway scene with Mary Jane. Kick things off. Kind of waited a little bit longer than that.
I know Peter isn't going to die because the movie just fucking started. But the main thing at risk here is the wedding ring. It adds an extra threat to the fight, and it's good for making the audience engaged. Now, right after this scene, we're thrown into the Sandman.
See, now you missed a criticism. You could have said that the ring, falls down really, really fucking fast. And then Harry and Peter are fighting for 30 seconds, and then he still manages to grab the ring at the end of the 30 seconds. That's very unrealistic. You could have added that as criticism, but you didn't. Rip.
Man's origin story, because like I said, this movie has no fucking breaks. However, him turning into Sandman is actually one of the best sequences in the whole movie. The effects have aged pretty well, and with no dialogue and beautiful music, it's an excellent example of wordless storytelling. It's kind of weird because if you look at this scene on its own, it's kind of beautiful, but then you remember it's in the same movie as this scene, and you get kind of upset. Anyway, Harry has amnesia now.
This part of the video made me realize he should have called the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy a retrospective or something. He should not have called it Worse Than You Remember. Because he just complimented it again. A retrospective is when you talk about the good things and bad things. Right? I made a retrospective on the new Star Wars Battlefront 2 game. Talked about the good things, talked about the bad things. But when you make a video that's called Worse Than You Remember, I don't want to be told about all the good things. I want to be told about the bad things. And you just keep on talking about how it's funny or if it's good. And then the criticisms that you make, I just disagree with. Your goal of the video is to change my mind, and you're just not doing it.
Which, as everybody knows, is probably the worst plot device in the history of storytelling. He seriously hit his head and forgot the entire last 2 movies. That is more than ridiculous.
I agree. You have 2 points. The intros and Harry getting amnesia.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, also, James Franco has gone from being a bad actor to being an insane one.
I got here as fast as I could.
I know that face.
Now, unsurprisingly, Mary Jane is still...
Kind of agree with that, too. It's pretty weird in this movie. But it's because he's infected with the goblin serum. He didn't perfect it or anything because he still sees hallucinations with his dad. So he didn't perfect it. So he's insane. Like the first Green Goblin. So of course he's fucking weird.
Still the worst character in this movie.
Spider-Man gets attacked all the time.
This isn't about you. This is about me.
Yeah. Yes, this is a scene that's very crucial because she reads the critic and it's a bad review, and then she goes, I look at these words and it's like my father wrote them. Her father was a fucking abusive alcoholic. So she's in a very terrible place. And then Peter is trying to be relatable, but he's also making it about him. You know, this is one of those times where you just go up to your girlfriend and you're like, hey, I understand, but your father didn't write them. Critic wrote them, and you can do better. Or you can be better. I don't know. I'm not in this situation. I'm just saying, you could have done better by saying, I know I get attacked all the time. You know? But I don't think that's a bad thing on Mary Jane's part.
Remember how in the last movie she's like, hey, I love you, I'll support your lifestyle. Yeah, well, the first time he has to go out and do Spider-Man stuff, she's like, ugh, I didn't know this Spider-Man shit was gonna be full-time.
Because he left when she was in a terrible situation. Okay.
Next scene is also really funny because we are now randomly introduced to all the new side characters. This random-ass motherfucker shows up and he's just like,
Oh my god, that's Gwen.
I'm sorry, who are you? This is the main villain, by the way, and he just shows up randomly. Now, all things...
I thought that was a pretty good way to introduce him. You get to, like, know his personality and his girlfriend, who he ends up losing to Peter, and I thought that was a good way to introduce him. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that.
Considered, Topher Grace's performance is not actually that bad. I actually really like it.
See, photography, it's not just about, no offense, flag...
Yeah, again, you're complimenting something. You should just call it a retrospective, man.
Poles, whatever. It's about lighting.
And it kind of upsets me that people blame him for why this movie sucks. He's actually perfectly playing the jerky, hot-headed foil to Peter Parker. He's just one of the better parts of the movie when he's not being Venom. Because when he gets the symbiote, he kind of sucks. Once he turns into Venom, he's just...
I like being bad. It makes me happy.
Fucking ridiculous. Honestly...
Yeah. But he's lost everything. He lost his job. He lost his girlfriend. He lost his reputation. Nobody will hire him. The symbiote is all he has. The symbiote makes him happy. Because the symbiote is all he has left. So I think that kind of works. All things considered, anyway.
It was just about one villain. One fucking dude. It could have been fine. Harry's motivations are clearly defined all the way from the first movie, and he would have made a great villain on his own. Sandman has a very compelling story, and the way he ties back to Peter could be interesting if...
You know, he should have criticized how Sandman killed Uncle Ben. Because it kind of ruins the impact of Spider-Man letting the robber go in the elevator. Now he's not that responsible towards it, and it's kind of stupid. That's a criticism I have of Spider-Man 3, but he didn't mention it.
Written well. Eddie Brock serves as a great foil to Peter, his narrative opposite. He represents something that we haven't seen in these movies yet. A person like Peter Parker, except motivated by his own selfishness instead of selflessness. Any one of these dudes would have been fine. Making a Spider-Man movie should be so fucking easy, but most of them suck. I'm so mad. So anyway, Mary Jane gets kicked.
Do I agree that there should be one villain? No. I like the way it worked. I don't mind if there's a villain and a sub-villain. It's fine. It's worked before. Remember, like, Shocker and Vulture and Homecoming and, like, the animated shows had all sorts of sub-villains and main villains in the arcs and stuff. I don't care. It's fine. Change it up a little bit, you know? But I don't know if there need to be 3 of them. But then again, the 3 of them kind of worked well together, I thought. I don't know. That's like a 50-50 criticism, I think. But I do agree with his takes on all 3 of the villains individually. I do agree with that.
Kicked out of her play.
But that's not a criticism.
Because she can't sing for shit, and she sees Peter swing by, and she actually gets mad at him. Yeah, forget being supportive of the Spider-Man lifestyle. Now you're actually actively jealous of your own boyfriend. And then she even has the audacity to get mad.
Now wait. Is he going to criticize Spider-Man kissing Gwen Stacy? Or is he going to blame it on Mary Jane?
When he kisses a random girl that he doesn't know. right in front of her. Peter, why did you do that?
You one-lined it. I knew you were going to do that. God damn it.
This movie's just basically Mary Jane and Peter Parker being pissy at each other again, because we haven't seen enough of that. Because we have the same general storyline in every single one of these movies. So now Spider-Man just...
Yeah. Okay. I can agree with that. Yeah. It is kind of a repetitive storyline. Not as much in the first one, but in the second and third one, sure. But they never really, like, hated each other or anything in the first movie, so... I don't think you should mention it in the first one. But in the second and third one, yeah. That's another, like, 50-50 criticism, I think. Well, I'll give it to you. Sure, why not? Okay, you get 3 points. That's 3 things I agree with you on.
decides to be evil, and he wears his hair different, and he says bad words.
You'll get your rent when you fix this door!
And everybody likes this part of the movie. This is everyone's favorite part of the movie. Everybody universally agrees that this is where the movie really shines. Now, this movie has a flow, much like the others do. However, the flow in this movie is fucking insane. They just have each villain getting kicked out of the story to make room for another villain. Harry's the bad guy at the beginning of the movie until he gets amnesia. Then Sandman comes in, and he's the villain until Peter murders him. Then Harry decides not to have amnesia anymore, and he's the villain again. Then Peter...
Yeah, but the flow of the bad guys is kind of cool because, you know, it's overwhelming, but eventually the flow has all of them meet up together. I don't really have a problem with that. I like the way it was done. It makes sense to me. You know? Green Goblin should be first because he's the villain that's all built up. Sandman could come next to get his powers, and then Venom should come at the end to align with Sandman. Because Sandman's already has been through that whole fight with Spider-Man. It works. I don't really have a problem with it.
Parker kills Harry Osborn with a bomb, and then...
When he's wearing the black suit, he's consumed by anger at the time. He doesn't kill him, though. He only, like, burns his face.
And Venom is the main villain after that. This movie is bananas. All while this is happening, we have bad acting.
It's over.
No. Please.
And just...
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
Just absolutely hilarious scenes.
Now dig on this.
The last act of this movie rushes along faster than you can say.
Oh boy, yeah.
Eddie Brock gets the symbiote, and immediately afterwards, him and Sandman just find each other wandering the streets. Then they steal a taxi, kidnap Mary Jane, and build a death trap for Spider-Man. This all happens in the span of like a couple minutes. This movie is so sluggishly paced until the point where all this shit has to be shoved in immediately. Oh, and then Peter goes to Harry to recruit him to fight the bad guys, but Harry is now the Phantom of the Opera and he's sad and he hides in his castle. But then the butler comes out and says that Spider-Man didn't kill his dad, and that Spider-Man is innocent.
I loved your father as I have loved you, Harry.
I'm sorry, who are you? So the
What do you mean, who are you? He's been in all 3 of the movies. He's been in all 3 of the movies and has had many scenes with the Osborns. What do you mean, who are you?
climax of this movie revolves around Peter saving Mary Jane. Does that sound familiar? Because it's been the climax in every single one of these movies. You see what I mean when I say these movies are all the same? I don't even care. It's so funny. 4 out of 10.
It's so funny. Stop saying it's funny. That's not a criticism. You can't start criticizing something and then say, I don't even care. It's too funny. That's a cop-out.
And really bad, but I like it anyway.
You like it anyway. You just told me that you liked all 3 of these films. And that they are not worse than you remember them. You said that they were funny. You came up with 4 criticisms that I agreed with when you were making them criticisms, and you weren't saying that they were funny.
I don't feel so good.
That's funny.
If you ask me, all 3 of these movies honestly do...
The problem with this whole thing is I can never tell when he's trying to be serious or not. Like, I can't tell if he's trying to be funny or if... Yeah, I just, like, can't tell if he's trying to be serious or funny or not. Because he always seems to be trying to tell a joke and be funny. Like, I can't take it seriously as a video essay.
Make a pretty decent trilogy. People say Spider-Man 3 is the worst one, but if you watch all of them back to back, it really doesn't feel that much different from the other two. So yeah, my opinion hasn't really changed. I prefer the new movies, but at the same time I can still enjoy these movies for what they are. Because even when they're bad, they aren't as bad as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, even though I've never seen it. And I'm never going to see it.
Can't make that argument if you have not seen the movie. Wait a second, this guy, I see up next, he has an Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 one. Oh, we're doing that one next. Stay tuned.
You guys are never going to get me to watch that movie. Because it's not going to happen. In a million years. Maybe some other time.
Yeah, he watched it.
Bye, guys.
Okay. That only took 1 hour and 15 minutes to go through. I think I've pretty much said everything I needed to say. He should have called it a retrospective. I agree with like 4 of his opinions. But none of his arguments or anything made me realize that these movies are worse than I used to think that they were. So, I don't think that was a good video. We'll check out his Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 movies. Because I think that those movies are bad. Except when Spider-Man is on screen. Because I think that Andrew Garfield plays the best Spider-Man. I think he's a terrible Peter Parker. I think that the villains are dumb. But man, I love watching Spider-Man in those movies. I don't really have a closing thing to say. Because, I mean, I just talked about this for an hour. Yeah. Should have called it a retrospective or something. Because every single time that I thought he was making a criticism, he was just saying that it's funny. And then even when he was making all these criticisms, he rated all 3 of the movies after saying... Like, he rated them and he said, I love them. That doesn't add up. Okay. Thank you for watching this very long episode of Hold My Microphone. If you want to see more podcast episodes like this, please let me know. Because I like analyzing essay videos and stuff. So just let me know if you enjoyed this one. And, yeah, thank you guys very much for tuning in this episode of Hold My Microphone. And I will see you guys on the next Hold My Microphone. Hold my microphone.